Hello, everybody, and a very warm welcome here to the Wine with Jimmy channel. Very delighted to have you on board. So this is for the D3 section of Diploma. This is on New York State, and we are coming down to Series 3 on Long Island, which stretches, of course, just to the east of New York City, and Hudson River as well, which to the north of it. We're going to be looking here at part one at the growing environment and grape growing for Long Island. Now we're going to rock and roll. If you do want to ask any questions, make any comments, maybe you've been to Long Island, maybe you've lived there in the past, maybe you've tried some wines from there, then please do get in touch. It's always lovely to hear from you. Okay, well, let's begin to look at the location of this. So to get an idea of this map, now if you go down towards the west and the southwest of this, it eventually goes down towards New York City, of course. So we are the wonderful forks of Long Island that stretch out from the east, sort of heading slightly northeasterly. It's surrounded by water, as you can see. You have the Atlantic Ocean to the southern section, you have the Long Island Sound to the north, and then you have the Peconic Bay in the middle part as well. So this is an area defined by water, and I've split it into the two main areas for viticulture. The main area is certainly the North Fork up here, and then we have the Hamptons that does have a small collection of wineries like Wolfer Estate, for example. As mentioned then, it's an area dominated by water. So we have a maritime climate and a fairly long growing season. And that's because the large amount of water bodies here slowly release the accumulated summer heat into the autumn and the harvest period. If you've watched my Finger Lakes videos, it's a similar thing there when we talked about the volume of the glacial lakes like Seneca, Cayuga, and Keuka lakes. Now they all give that storage of heat, and they give that off during the autumn, which means it elongates the season. As a result, this area, which has even more of that elongation of the season, is able to ripen black Bordeaux varietals, with Merlot in particular being quite a seasonable grape right here. But it also grows a range of other grape varieties, including the likes of Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc, and Cabernet Sauvignon, of course, too. Now, the issues here, of course, it's not all just wonderful and smelling of roses. We do have a few issues here. And of course, that's around the amount of water. The warmth that one might find here, plus the humidity, means that fungal diseases may be problematic. But in the slightly windier parts, you will find on the coastal areas, of course, you're going to get some alleviation of this, where you've got good aeration. So it can have high disease pressure, but that can be offset by some of the windier conditions. Organic grape growing, so organic viticulture, is quite difficult in this climate, but there are a number of local sustainable certification bodies that one finds here. So what do we do then viticulturally to combat these issues around things like high disease pressure? Well, we have management options in terms of the canopy, which includes the likes of spraying, which of course is the very sort of human direct response. There's a problem, let's think of a chemical. So spraying is an issue, but I think there's actually more clever and more creative techniques like canopy management directly, and that is through leaf removal to really open up the canopy. And that allows better air circulation through the vineyard. Now, this might seem on the outset something strange, because we actually want a lot of leaf coverage for, of course, sunlight interception for better photosynthesis. But too much of a canopy creates a real congested canopy, which can create more problems with disease pressure, for example. So a nice open canopy, of course, you're not stripping every leaf away, but opening it up. And then also when you go into the winery, so vineyard to winery, you could do selection at both vineyard level and winery. And that can mean you can eliminate any problem fruit. But it's often better to get to the point where you have done everything possible to make sure that your fruit is in good condition anyhow. The geology then, I mentioned earlier that we have a split of two areas with the majority of vineyards and wineries located on the North Fork. We do have a few in the Hamptons as well. The North Fork is slightly warmer and more protected from the Atlantic Ocean's weather events. So that's, of course, why we've got a huge domination here of vineyards and wineries. We have about 60 odd here, in contrast to only 6 in the Hamptons, so 10 times the amount on the North Fork. The North Fork has the sandy soils that you can actually see in the left-hand picture from the Macari vineyard, which is low in fertility. Everything's low in fertility, but the sandy soils, and then on the Hamptons you have these silty loams. Now everything here is fairly low in its fertility, and they're pretty good at drainage as well, which is very important in terms of the wet weather that one can find in this area. Vines are generally trained and trellised via vertical shoot positioning methods, and that's because vigor is not as high here as we talked about in the Finger Lakes. If you go back to one of my previous videos from the series before on the Finger Lakes, I discussed that Cabernet Franc, they're actually increasing the yield from the vineyard at no detriment to the quality, because with the large vine formats there, like Scott Henry, Geneva Double Curtain, they can actually increase the quantity, but also keep the quality of the Cabernet Franc. That's because there's vigor there, the vines can grow quite substantially, but it's much more lower vigor here, which means you are really matching the vine, which is normally something like Guillot, which you actually see in both of these pictures, and you're suiting it to the vine vigor of the land, which is relatively low due to the silty loam and sandy soils that one finds in this area. Okay, so that's it for the growing environment and grape growing. Please do join me next when we discuss the grape varieties majorly at play here, the winemaking techniques, and then the overall styles that one finds in Long Island. Any questions, please pop them in the comments section below this. Maybe you've been to New York, maybe you've tried Long Island wines, maybe you've got a winery to recommend, or there's just somewhere with a great restaurant that everybody should know about. Please do pop it in this video below. Any questions as well down there too. If you do find yourself in the United Kingdom, I've got quite a few wine establishments, so come and see me for a class, maybe a glass, more likely a bottle. I've been Jimmy Smith. Ciao for now. Goodbye.